Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I'm Angelia, and today I'm going to review books that I read in 2024 that I call Quiet Gems. Now, I talk about quiet gems all year, and last year I made a video when I was doing different wrap-ups at the end of the year. I did one on the quiet gems, my top books of the year. I think I did one on mysteries. I think I did one on science fiction or speculative fiction. I would say the quiet gems and the top 10 or 12 or whatever it ended up being, those were the biggest hits. So I want to definitely incorporate those this year, even if I don't get to all the other ones. And before we start, you can probably notice that I have also acquired some kind of holiday crud. It's not really a surprise. I took an airplane trip. It was a stressful trip, and then I've been busy, and somewhere in all of that, I have picked up this something that has come to reside in my head and chest. So I'll probably be editing out a lot of coughing. What can we do? So, a quiet voice for the quiet gems. And these are the books that they might be slower in pace or slower in tone. They are books that are mostly character focused and not about explosive, propulsive plots, although they do have plots and sometimes even suspense or some kind of action, but there's just a tone to them that is quieter and lower key in nature. And the good stuff in these books is in conversations and character reflections and things like that, but we'll talk about each one as we go through. So because sometimes you want to read something that is thrilling and really surprising and twists and turns, and sometimes you want to just kind of chill it out a little bit. So these aren't even necessarily happy or relaxing books. I'm not talking about cozy. I'm just talking about more reflective, more character focused, that kind of thing. So let's take a look. And they're not in order of when I read them. I roughly grouped them with a couple other ideas in mind. So the first ones, I think there's 10 books, and the first 3 are new releases from 2024. So the majority of this is also, these are backlist books and not new releases. There are still some new releases that I haven't yet read that might end up falling into this category, so I guess they'll make next year's roundup. We have an author who really excels in this category, in my opinion, and this is Colm Toibin with Long Island. This is the follow-up to his novel Brooklyn. I read Brooklyn, I guess, last year, so I didn't have the same amount of gap as someone who read it as a new release, but the books take place, I think, about 20 years apart. So, and you really do, to benefit the most and enjoy Long Island the most, you really need to read Brooklyn, because that is about a young girl named Eilish who is 19, 20-ish, who comes to Brooklyn from a small town in Ireland around 1950. And it is a beautiful, quiet gem about homesickness, about coming of age, about courage and striking out and becoming independent and making decisions about yourself for the first time in your life. In Long Island, we come back to Eilish 20 years later. She's married, she has teenage children, she lives in an enclave, like a cul-de-sac of houses with Italian in-laws that is not that different from the closed-in feel that she used to get in her Irish village as a child and a young girl. And something happens at the beginning of the book that is shocking for Eilish, and it sparks her decision to go back and visit her mom in the small town in Ireland that from whence she came. And it's a town that Colm Toibin has incorporated in some other novels as well. So the old question, or the old saying, you can't go back again. Well, is this true? We're going to find out, because she goes back not only to the town, but to people that she knew, to a person that she made a crucial decision about way back when, and considers whether there's chances to revisit some of those decisions. Not anything huge and explosive happened in the plot, but a lot of but things that are of great importance in personal life do happen, and not just for Eilish, but also for Jim, a man that, well, he's not young anymore, but a man that she knew when she was young, and that she meets again, who still lives in the town. I'm not going to tell you what happens or doesn't happen, or could happen, or should happen, or didn't happen, whatever. You're going to have to read and find out. But it is, you have to read Brooklyn first, and then this is a beautiful follow up. The next one that was a new release this year and seems to be flying under the radar a bit as far as people talking about it on BookTube is Clear by Carys Davies. This was the first time I read a book by this author, but she has a couple other ones, and I definitely would like to read something else by Carys Davies. But Clear is also a shorter book. Let's see, I don't know if it qualifies for Shorty September. Yes, it's 193 pages, so keep that in mind. And as you look closely, you see a Wedgwood teapot floating in the waves, and that comes into play in this story. So this is about the Scottish clearances. A man named John, who is sent to a remote island to convince the one remaining inhabitant that he needs to move to the mainland. They want to buy this guy off, relocate him. He's a sheep farmer, and they're claiming the land. He takes this job, which he knows is a sorry job, because he is himself low on the money. He is a man who has gotten married pretty late in life for this time period, and the story is also about his wife, Mary, and because while he is gone for an extended amount of time, eventually Mary gets worried and comes to look for him. When John gets to this island, he has an accident and falls down a cliff, and he is unconscious, and he is discovered by Ivar, who is that inhabitant that he was supposed to go and get him to move out. Ivar doesn't know who John is or why he's there. He just finds an unconscious man on the island and begins to care for him. So we have three characters who maybe don't know each other, do not speak each other's language, because Ivar is one of the last remaining people to speak a certain dialect that John doesn't know. So when John wakes up, they have to navigate how to communicate. And then we have Mary, who's worried because her husband did not come back when she was expecting him, and can't get a hold of him. And that's all I really want to tell you about the plot, but it moves slowly and has some beautiful surprises. And I know some people did not like the ending of this book, but I really did. And I don't really want to say anything else about it, but the ending, I don't know. I just liked the ending. I liked the possibilities that the ending suggested, the hope, and the way people's thoughts and feelings change, and minds open, and communications develop. And I want to be vague and just say that I really liked the spirit of this book. The other one that was a new release was Elizabeth Strout's latest novel, Tell Me Everything. And this is both a Lucy novel and an Olive novel, because both of her iconic characters are in this book. It's not, it's different than the other books in the Lucy Barton series. All but one of those is narrated in first person by Lucy Barton, except for what is it called? Anything is Possible, which is connected short stories about people in Lucy's town. That one, by the way, is the one that I would say is a gem, but not quiet, because there's some pretty tumultuous things in some of those stories. But overall, she does well in the quiet gem territory in most of her novels. In this one, it takes place in the town in Maine that we are familiar with from the Olive Kitteridge books, and also from the book right before this one, Lucy by the Sea, in which Lucy and her ex-husband William rent a house on the coast of Maine and leave New York City during the COVID pandemic. So in this book, they are still there. They've decided to take up residence there. And it's about Lucy's friendship with Bob Burgess, who we know from other books as well. And she also becomes acquainted with Olive. And Olive lives in a senior center, and Lucy goes to visit her a number of times, and they talk about what they call unrecorded lives, which are those amazing and powerful stories that might go unnoticed in everyday people's lives. Things that they know from people they have encountered or relatives that they have, and they tell each other these stories. Lucy's a writer, so Olive thinks maybe Lucy will find something in these stories that she can use. So not a lot happens as far as plot, but just reuniting with these characters, I found it very satisfying. A lot of people thought it wasn't her best one. If I looked at all of these series and ranked them, I wouldn't pick it out as my favorite, but I really did enjoy it a lot, and I love the time that I got to spend with these characters again. And now for a book that I have mentioned repeatedly, and it is I guess it's kind of a booktube darling, and it is Leonard and Hungry Paul by Ronan Hession. This book, if Quiet Gem was an entry in the dictionary, they might put a picture of this book next to the definition, because this has all the Quiet Gem vibes. Somehow this book is really unconventional and offbeat, but not being either one of those somehow. Like, it's not experimental, it's not weird, but somehow it's still unconventional. I guess because the characters are, even though they're unconventional in the most reassuring ways. So Leonard and Hungry Paul are two men in their 30s who live with their families. They are not slackers. They don't sit in the basement and play video games and get high all day. It's not that kind of adult man living at home. They just are happy living with their families, and they're happy having jobs that aren't especially stressful or overly demanding. One of them writes nonfiction children's books. He sort of assembles the factual information and puts out the books that are published under an actual author's name, but he is kind of the fact checker and kind of a co-writer of sorts. And he has some ideas in the back of his head of what he'd do if he wrote his own book under his own name. That's Leonard, and his friend Hungry Paul is a part-time mail deliverer. He's the substitute mail carrier, and he's totally happy with this. He doesn't want a full-time Monday through Friday job. He wants enough money for the things that he does on a daily basis, which is read and play board games and hang out with his friend and hang out with his family. And they're perfectly fine. Except certain things come along in life that give you a chance to decide if you want to make any changes, if you want to explore anything else. Maybe you meet someone and you think about dating. Maybe a job opportunity comes along that doesn't quite float back out of your mind like it would have done in the past. Small crossroads, a family marriage, the things that give you that moment to pause and think, well, wait a minute. This is all fine. If this is it, then I'm happy. But maybe there's a little bit more. And so that is what we get with Leonard and Hungry Paul. It's funny and it's warm. There's some conversations in here about, like Hungry Paul has a sister who's always thinking, really, aren't you going to do something else? Aren't you going to try to get another job? Why aren't you dating anybody? She thinks that there's some kind of unrealized potential that he's not fulfilling, that she's always trying to motivate him to go out and seek. And there's a great conversation where he just kind of tells her, you be you and I'll be me, and we're good. Let's just back off of all that. And I just really love this book. That wasn't quiet at all. Okay, moving right along. Let's do a classic. This year I read The Warden by Anthony Trollope. Look at this beautiful edition. It's the first edition in a 6-part series, the Barchester Chronicles. I am so excited that I have only read the first book and that there's a whole bunch more. And I'm on a quest to find the ones that match this Penguin edition. And it even has a map on the inside. It is a Victorian novel that is not a potboiler, that is not a marriage plot, even though there are two people that are kind of thinking about marriage in the book, but it's about different things. And it's kind of short, which Anthony Trollope is not real well known for. The other book I read by him had all kinds of things going on and stuff sprawling in every direction, and I love that one too, The Way We Live Now, but this one was tighter. And it's about a man who is a pastor or a clergyman in a town where there is sort of a add-on job of being the warden or supervisor of this small nursing home that at any given time can accommodate 12 men. So men from the village who don't have any means of support, and they have become too elderly to work or too disabled or too something where they need help, and it's a charity hospital. And it's sort of it's kind of a lucrative extra position if you are this particular clergyman, because over time the original bequeathment of this, it came out of somebody's will who owned the property, and they stipulated that it was going to be used for this nursing home. But the value of the land surrounding it has grown and grown. So I guess the dividends or whatever, the income that you get by being the warden has gone up and up and up. And so it's this great extra income. However, the amount that the men are given for their daily expenses, their kind of living allowance, has not really increased over time. And that is where the plot conflict comes in, because a younger upstart lawyer who thinks, oh, I have discovered an injustice, he sets out to make some waves and change things up. And it just sets off a lot of small town politics, church politics, personal reckonings about what is right and wrong, and what is legal and not legal, what is ethical and not ethical. And at the heart of it all, we have the warden, who is a good and decent man who wants to do the right thing. So that was the Warden. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see what the next book in the series is about. Am I going to drop everything? What is this? I have the dropsy. The next one is a tiny, teeny weeny novella, and it is The English Understand Wool by Helen DeWitt. It has this great Wayne Thiebaud painting on the front, and it's shiny. It looks like a little golden book. You know what? Speaking of things that are shiny, I forgot to model today's thrifted attire. Hold on, we're going to have a mid-video modeling moment. So we have this homemade, I didn't make it, I got it in a thrift store, but somebody made this. It has no tag. It is reversible, and it has these appliques on it that are kind of giving me Rankin Bass claymation late 60s vibes. And then beneath that we have this dinosaur holiday shirt. And it has a more tasteful and neutral reversed side. So back to the video. The English Understand Wool by Helen DeWitt. It's a novella. It's about a girl who finds out she's not who she thought she was. And it's also about the value that she learned from her adoptive mother about appearances, behavior, wealth, how there is a lot of it. There's a big importance in how you treat people and in laying a groundwork for the future. It's also about how playing the part can be just as important as truly owning the part. A teenage girl finds out that her wealthy, privileged life has been a bit of a sham. And her reaction to this is not what the public and what the media expect or want. And that therein lies the pleasures of this very short book, are how this young girl uses what she knows and the connections that she has to take over a narrative. Is that vague enough for you? I can't tell you anything else because it's really short, but it is a lot of fun. It goes so fast. I'm going to have to read it again because there's not a lot of it. And it gets to the end, you're like, oh, wait, no. So I do need to read it again and kind of look at the mechanisms a little more closely. But I thought it was a lot of fun. Yes, it looks like I did read a lot of really great quiet gems because there's a few more. The next one is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. The translator was, hold on, Ginny Tapley Takemori. And this is a novel, a short novel, another great potential for Shorty September, about a woman named Kaiko in her 30s who works at a convenience store. A convenience store is a little different in Japan than an American one. There are these stores, and I'm kind of picturing almost like a tiny Target or Walmart. It's a little more than or a CVS. It's a little bigger than a bodega or a 7-Eleven type store. It's a little more comprehensive. There's some takeout food, but then there's all those run in and pick something up kind of stuff. And apparently these stores are all across the country and in a pretty identical format. So if you go into one and you kind of know the layout, you kind of know them all. But Kaiko got a job working in one of these stores right out of high school. And even though she did go to college and get a degree, she's been perfectly content at her store. And that is something that is a recurring theme in some of these books is what is fulfilling? What makes you content? And how do you resist the world's efforts to pressure you into thinking you need more, into other people's perceptions of what is right and what is fulfilling and what is success and what is happiness. So Kaiko at the beginning of this book is very happy. She knows her store so well. She's the longest running employee. She is the unofficial know-all, do-all. She's completely absorbed in this. Other employees make fun of her and she buys all the company BS, the meetings where we're trying to pep up the morale and see who has the spirit and who buys into all of the mottos of the company. It's Kaiko, okay? And other people that work there come and go and kind of think that she's just kind of a nut. And so it's about Kaiko and when she tries something different. When a situation comes along, she sees a moment where she could at least pretend to the outside world that she's doing some of the things that everybody thinks she ought to do. Okay, I completely lost the thread. A phone call came that I had to take. I know I was talking about this particular book. I think we're just going to move on to the next one because I don't even remember what I was saying. So the next two, now this is a surprise to me. Two books that I classify as quiet gems are science fiction or speculative fiction, and that is not really where I experience this. Usually the dystopian or post-apocalyptic kind of books they're not quiet. Sometimes they're kind of action-packed. Sometimes they're usually like danger and survival and things like that. And a little bit of that is in this book, but I think I called it earlier in this year, it's kind of a cozy apocalyptic tale. It's the Blue Book of Nebo by Manon Steffan Ross. It is a Welsh novel. She wrote it in Welsh and then translated it into English. And it is a post-apocalyptic book. Something has happened in the near future and something nuclear in nature because there's evidence in the story of radiation sickness or the effects of radiation on living things. But the characters don't really know exactly what happened. They're isolated and really haven't seen any other living people for many years. So except I'll get to one thing. So we have a mother and a son. That's what this is about. The boy is a teenager. He's just getting to the age where he's starting to have more questions about, well, what happened and what else could happen? What's out there? What was life like before this happened? He has very, very minimal memories of the time before. He was very young when it happened. And he and his mother have been surviving out in the countryside. But she had a whole life before this happened. And in one abandoned house, they find a blank journal, and they start to write the journal in two separate halves. So that's what this book is the journal of the two people. The boy finds his mother to be a mystery. She's the only person he knows, the only person he has a relationship with, but she plays it so close to the vest, and she's so emotionally guarded. And she, on the other hand, contains multitudes, and she just hasn't revealed them all to Dylan. And they write their journals separately, and they agree not to read each other's parts without permission. And so we have the story of their survival and their resilience. We have the coming of age that Dylan is experiencing without any other people around, but the active life of his mind and what he's gotten from all the reading that he has done. And then we have Rowena's story that she reveals more candidly in the journal than she ever has in person to Dylan. And also, there's a third character in this book, which is a baby sister, which is a great mystery for a lot of the book about how this may have happened when there doesn't seem to be anybody else alive or around in this story. But it's beautiful, it's sad, it's hopeful, and I love the format of the two journal entries, and it's short. It's just really, if you enjoy apocalyptic fiction, it's a really great thing to add to your experiences because it's so different in tone than so many other books in this genre. And then the other science fiction book I read, it wasn't really a surprise that it's a quiet gem because that's what I heard from person after person. And I read it just recently, just last week, and it was a balm for my soul. And that was A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. It's my first Becky Chambers book. I'm going to talk about it more in my Friday reads, but I've already requested the second book in the Monk and Robot series, and so I'm not going to talk about it a lot now because I do want to talk about it on Friday, but there are just two main characters, Dex and Mossflower, a human and a robot, and it's the heart of the book is them encountering each other and getting to know each other when neither of them has ever met a person or not even a person in the case of Mossflower, but they haven't encountered a robot and a human. Nobody has for hundreds of years. I'll talk about it on Friday, but again, I seem to be really dwelling on these short books this year, and you're also going to find out what the heck does this title mean. You will find out when you read the book. It is just a lovely little slice of kindness and curiosity and exploring what it means to be thoughtful and to be open-minded and to get to know somebody. And okay, I'll talk about it Friday. All right, so that's it. 10 quiet gems that I read in 2024. Most of the backlist titles, so check your library, check it out, and when you are in that mood, here's a whole bunch to pick from. Different subjects, different genres. I hope you heard about something that you would like to read, and if you have read any of them, tell me in the comments, or if you have some other things I should add to my quiet gem list for 2025, I would love to hear those titles. Also, have a great day, and I'll be back for Friday Reads.